Donald Trump doesn't know what's happening around him. He's a boxer swinging with his eyes closed and repeatedly punching himself in the face. He is causing the current revolt that is happening amongst Republican members of the House and Senate and his own base. And it is only getting worse as Donald Trump forgets where he is, what he's doing, what he's promised, and why everyone is so upset with him, which is what we saw today in some leaked audio that is very concerning for Donald Trump's mental state, if we could be more concerned with the pudding leaking out of his brain, and also the terrible economic disaster that he continues to cause. We're going to get into it all. This is a very crazy story, as it always is. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you, leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we get into that leaked audio and Trump forgetting about the promise that he made and the fact that he's still the president, unfortunately, I want to start where Donald Trump is making us, his attack on Jerome Powell, because it relates in a very important way to the economic misunderstanding that we're going to get into with Trump.
Fed Chair Jerome Powell talks about Fed independence, right? How important do the American people think that is?
Very, very. And I'll just say, to quote the movie Tootsie, this is one nutty hospital, this back and forth. My goodness gracious. They think it's incredibly important that the Fed acts independently of Donald Trump, and they think it's best for the economy. We're talking about more than 2/3 of adults, 68%, 91% of Democrats, 75% of independents, and even 41%, 2/5 of Trump's base thinks it's important that the Fed acts independently of Trump for the best of the economy. So when you get 41% of Republicans and 91% of Democrats agreeing on something with 75% of independents, you know it is a popular position. The bottom line is the American people vigorously disagree with the President of the United States on this. They want a Fed that acts independently of him because they think it's best for the economy.
So the Trump administration very clearly, to an extent, picking a fight with Jerome Powell, a clear political fight, which has been in play for months, and now perhaps a legal fight as well. Who do the American people sort of pick in that fight?
Donald Trump is losing the political fight to Jerome Powell. I mean, you could just see it right here. Net approval rating per Gallup in December. Trump comes in at negative 23 points on the net approval rating.
Now, I can tell you this much, and Elizabeth Warren, who is on a media tour that I want to talk about at a later point in this video, so do stick around for that because she's breaking some important news. But as Elizabeth Warren has continued to reiterate, this is not about standing up for Jerome Powell. I'm not getting a Jerome Powell t-shirt. I'm not making Jerome Powell hats. But when we have a Republican appointed, Trump appointed, the government official coming out against Donald Trump's DOJ and saying that this is a gangster state administration, something that we've known for a long time, I don't think that we need to celebrate it necessarily as much as we need to point to it as the courage that we should expect. This should be the baseline. We shouldn't have to celebrate Jerome Powell because everyone should respond to Donald Trump's criminality in this way. Of course, I want to say that I'm glad this is the response from Powell. I'm glad that he's not taking this lying down. I think many in Trump's own administration are happy with this response because if he had just quit or Trump had just fired him, it would have been an economic catastrophe, which is currently what we're staring down as Donald Trump wants to spend billions on Greenland and Venezuela and anything but you. It's what Chris Murphy said right here, and it's so important to this audio of Trump.
Be the end of NATO, right? I mean, NATO would have an obligation to defend Greenland. And so query whether we would be at war with Europe, with England, with France. But let's also talk about what's at stake here. The president is spending every single day thinking about invading Greenland, managing the Venezuelan economy, building a ballroom. He is not thinking about the American people at all. This month, premiums, health insurance premiums on 22 million Americans are going up, doubling in some cases. Kids aren't able to eat 3 meals because the Trump administration has slashed food assistance. And so every single day, the president is thinking about Greenland, his ballroom, Venezuela. He is spending no time thinking about the actual crises that are being visited on American families. This is a president who is distracted by things that don't matter to the American people at a moment where the American people are in crisis. That is the underlying reality of a White House that has become out of control.
Donald Trump is fundamentally disinterested in doing anything to help me or you. Donald Trump only seeks to serve billionaires, and actually a very increasingly small group of billionaires at this point. I don't know if you caught our video last night of Trump on Air Force One saying he's cutting ExxonMobil out of all of the Venezuela dealings because they didn't properly kiss his ass enough at the White House. But Donald Trump is running a gangster state that is ruining our economy every single day. And it only continues to get worse. And Donald Trump, the man who promised to lower prices, doesn't realize he's the one who made those promises or the one who has to fix it, something he's not going to do. But it was exposed in this leaked audio from an interview with Trump. When did I do that? Trump appears to forget promising Americans $2,000 checks. Donald Trump appeared to forget about his promise to send Americans $2,000 checks from his tariff windfall when recently pressed by reporters with the New York Times. Reporters Katie Rogers and Tyler Pager published a wide-ranging interview with the president last week. An audio posted to Twitter, Rogers is heard asking, "You promised $2,000 checks to Americans based off of your tariff revenues. When can?" And Trump interrupts and said, I did do that? When did I do that? Trump responded, as we can hear in this audio right here.
You promised $2,000 checks to Americans based off of your tariff revenues. When can
I did do that. When did I do that?
Well, I mean, you're
Yeah, I'm thinking, well, I did 1776 for the military,
When
right?
will those Americans get those checks?
Well, I am going to. The tariff money is so substantial that's coming in that I'll be able to do 2,000 sometime, I would say, toward the end of the year.
He doesn't even remember his promises, which I guess if you're asking the question, is Trump intentionally trying to break every promise he made on the campaign trail, or is he just so much of an idiot, or does he just care so little? It's a mixed bag. It's kind of all of those things. But Donald Trump has completely forgotten about the economic messaging, again, lies that he told that got him across the finish line in 2024. Trump was right when he said it was economic messaging. I will say again, lies and misunderstanding broadly from Americans about what tariffs are and what Donald Trump planned to do. It was the second round of Mexico's going to pay for the wall, but this time it was, China's going to pay for $2,000 checks, and now we don't sell soybeans anymore, so I'm going to go ahead and say that was a miscalculation, y'all. Maybe you should have listened to the black woman you were so afraid of, but that's for another day. Right? Let's put that in a little package here. Trump has fundamentally forgotten everything that's happened around him. He doesn't really, in my opinion, have a grasp on what he's supposed to be doing in the presidency or what it's about. He loves a phrase like take the oil or just the word tariffs because he doesn't have to do much with it. Donald Trump is not someone who has ever really executed in any way. This is a man who every 2 weeks tells us that something is 2 weeks away, and then 2 weeks later, it's 2 weeks from the 2 weeks from the 2 weeks. Donald Trump is not a guy who executes. He doesn't get into the nitty gritty. It's sloganeering. That has been his entire political career. But he doesn't remember the slogans anymore. He doesn't remember what he's promised, what he said, well, what the expectations are of him, because he is in such cognitive decline. A man getting up in the middle of a meeting with oil executives to go look at an imaginary ballroom that hasn't been built yet and talk about how great it is while he reads aloud secret notes from Marco Rubio is not someone whose cognitive state you should be betting on. This is a man in deep decline, obviously in deep decline. That is the state of Donald Trump. Not remembering who he is, where he is, what's going on, and it's very clear in his failed, non-existent economic messaging. Do you remember after that Vanity Fair piece came out, Susie Wiles spilling the beans on Trump, kind of beginning to hint at his decline, saying that he was in the Epstein files, calling J.D. Vance a conspiracy nut? Remember what the Trump administration's answer was to that disaster? Well, it was, we're going to send Donald Trump on the road. They sent him to Pennsylvania. I know it was only a few weeks ago, but it feels like 10 years ago. Do you remember that? We're going to have Donald Trump sell his economic agenda. That was their response. Is Donald Trump still selling his economic agenda? Is Donald Trump still on the road? Is Donald Trump still talking about tariffs? No. Why do you think they pulled him out of that? Why do you think he's not speaking in front of crowds? It's not because he doesn't like to. It's not because he doesn't like to yell Barack Hussein, right? Talk about transgender for everybody. Do the thing where he goes, He likes doing that. It's because they see that as a political liability. Susie Wiles sees that as a political liability because Donald Trump's economic messaging, it doesn't exist, first of all. And when you are in power, you cannot critique power, which is all the right likes to do. They don't like to govern. Donald Trump hates to govern. Donald Trump doesn't even like to probably put his own pants on. He's not a guy who gets stuff done, which is why the media tour that Elizabeth Warren is going on right now, and I don't say that in a bad way, she's doing a great media tour, is something that I think we should all be paying attention to when it comes to how Democrats should be speaking going forward in the most important midterms we've ever had. And I want to take a listen to a little bit of what Elizabeth Warren said right here. You should too.
I see this as we get them back by talking about the thing that they tell us is most important to them.
So stop talking about those issues?
My view is let's put forward an agenda from Democrats that will really deliver for working families. Let's get out there and talk credibly about what it is we are willing to fight for. Are we willing to fight to increase housing supply? Are we willing to fight to get corporations out of the business of buying up those houses in America? Even if it annoys, irritates, pisses off a bunch of billionaire donors who are making money
like you
off
learned
the system
lessons.
as it is.
Not to borrow and invoke the old line, but it is the economy's stupid. And I think it is finding a good enemy, right? I think that when you look at Donald Trump's administration, everything, you saw his HUD secretary say this morning that the reason that rent is out of control in California and New York is because of illegal immigrants, which literally doesn't make any sense. There's no evidence to support that. But they found their enemy and they've stuck to it. And that is their answer to every single problem. If we could just go after this enemy a little bit more, everything would be fine. So who is that enemy for us? It is corporate greed. It is the billionaire class. It is the oligarchs who seek to control our politics in so many ways. And Elon Musk, though he declared Donald Trump a pedophile last year, wants to get back on board in midterms. And what I can say about his money is, if we learned anything from Wisconsin, the beginning of last year, it is a detriment, right? It is a deterrent to voters. It's not a benefit. So how about we frame this fight as one against the oligarchs, one not just against Trump, but a systemic issue holding us back from real greatness. Trump talked about making America great again, and he was always kind of invoking, in a racist way, a white past. But it's always funny because I love that clip. You ask a MAGA supporter, when was America great? And they say, about after World War II, when the top tax bracket was the highest it had ever been. It's like 90%. So maybe we should start tackling obscene wealth. Maybe we should make Larry Ellison, who wants to surveil you and make billions of dollars doing it, the enemy. I think that's probably the best way to go. Doesn't mean we throw trans people under the bus, because that's what cowards do. Don't be cowardly. Stand up to all of them on everything. Don't let them divide us. That's my advice. That's Elizabeth Warren's advice. I think that's good advice. We're going to continue to talk about that on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. I love you dearly. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.